welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, the Talking Tan Jack, and today we are going over the gun of John Wick. And did you really think I was going to be that predictable to do a John Wick reference?
I'm thinking I'm back.
I really should have. I should have. Maybe I still will. Who knows? It's none of your business. But today we're going over the HK P30L. Now, what makes this HK P30L is that this one was provided me from Langdon Tactical. Now, Langdon Tactical has kind of become like this really high-end brand at what they do. They have the 1301 series, they have their Beretta series, now they have their HK series. Now, most of us being fans of John Wick, I was very eager to get my hands on an HK P30L. So I love handguns, but at least for the YouTube channel, I really don't get that excited to show them off, but I kind of got really excited for this just because of what it is, because you have to understand my background and context. So I spent a lot of time shooting handguns due to my prior law enforcement background. If you're unfamiliar with what I did and why a man on the internet wearing a balaclava is talking about this, I used to be a beat cop. I started a YouTube channel while I was at my department and I wore a balaclava so I wouldn't get in trouble. I was mainly afraid of my department, and then things spiraled out of control and I am here where I am today. And the balaclava just stuck, so we'll see how the story arc plays out. So in my law enforcement days, I spent a lot of time running a handgun, particularly the Glock 17. Now this is pretty much my exact same setup, minus the Vampire light. I just ran a Surefire X300 on there. And this was my bread and butter. This is what I felt very comfortable with. I feel very comfortable with the Glock 17 today. Everything about it, the ergonomics, the grip, the Gen 5 setup, I essentially carried every day for over 2 years. As well as my EDC gun for the longest time was a Glock 19 with an acro. I have other videos on this setup and EDCing this stuff, of course, so I can always link that up here. Switching over to a new handgun to me was always like I don't really care. So, but being the YouTube channel and the YouTube dancing monkey that I am, I figured, hey, let's do a little science. I'm probably not going to get into a street fight anytime soon, and if I do, at least it'll be with an HK. So what I did, this is personally what I did. I essentially got this gun from Langdon. I outfitted it with the SRO. I started with the red dot or with the RMR, then I switched over to the SRO because I wanted it to be Gucci. I got 2 holster setups from LAS, which are actually gonna be one of the sponsors of this video, so big thank you to LAS for sponsoring this video. But they provided me the inside the waistband holster and they provided me an outside the waistband holster. I essentially, since I got it at the beginning of November, I would carry it pretty much every day inside the waistband. And I've actually found that I liked it a lot. Especially shooting it too. So I found, compared to my other Glock handguns, the purchase upon concealed carry, from removing it from the holster, the grip, the how it lines up when you present it, everything's a lot higher. And that's something that I do like about the gun itself. Gentlemen, I know you're on the toilet, I know you're watching this, drinking your coffee, consuming your beer. Maybe you're doing something a little goofy, a little silly. You're being a little dubious little creature.
A dubious little creature.
Getting up to mischief, this is no good. The beast is demonic in nature. Anyway, make sure you like and subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section down below. I know it's YouTube and cheesy, but your comments really do help out, and I actually love to read them when I'm on the toilet myself. Patreon, excellent way to support the channel, as well as merchandise. But on Patreon, we have a Discord. We're talking about girls, mainly Ana de Armas from Blade Runner, who stay up late. Guys get in there and play video games together. It's a really good little biome and community for people of like-minded such as yourself to get together. So big thank you to my Patreon. I love them very much. All right, let's get back to the P30L. Can you close me out? Yeah, thanks. Now the gun itself is going to be an HK P30L. Now this is going to be the LEM model. The LEM is a law enforcement model essentially, so it's like law enforcement model is what I'm saying. But this is not going to be the double action, single action. You can tell by there's no decocker on the rear. So the difference between the double action, single action versus like the LEM, so pretty much versus this. This is my USP Compact. I bought this mainly because of Blood Diamond. And so right now you have a double action, single action gun. So you have a decocker that also acts as the safety right here. You can see the hammer is locked to the rear. You push that down and it decocks the gun, but you still have a round in the chamber. So it's like extra safe. You have a really hard trigger, you have a safety, and it's essentially agencies that are concerned about safety really like that feature. Now to pull the trigger back to fire, it's a very heavy trigger, and then you have that brake. So round cycles, and now that reset, it's in that single action, like a much better trigger pull. Me personally, I don't like that. I bought the gun because of Blood Diamond. I don't like the double action feature. I do like it because of safety. There is a nice aspect of safety when it comes to it, of having like a hammer down, super heavy trigger, safety on, and when it's pointed at your sensitive manhood, there is that little X factor of you do feel a bit safer. But as far as it goes, I mean, if my nuts get blown off, I'm gonna have a loss of the century. So we'll play with the hand that's given to me. So with this bad boy, it's just essentially the single action. Now there is that, I'll show you guys here. There is the heavy double action trigger, but that's never gonna be engaged if a round is in the chamber. So you can see how much tension is going into pulling that trigger, and then you have the break, right? And it's still in that double action because it's never cycled. But if there's a round in the chamber, it's always gonna be in that single action. It's a really nice trigger. And the very short reset. So that's the reset right there. So you can really run the gun fast. Now keep in mind, I like to shoot. I like to think I'm a decent shooter, but I'm not a great shooter compared to a lot of guys out there. So if you're a really good shooter, you could probably run this gun way faster than I could, of course, but you could probably really push your skills. So I am a fan of the LEM style where there's no safety. Essentially, it's just a much faster gun to get out and shoot. Now, the safeties usually appeal, I feel like, towards military organizations because they're always working off the lowest common denominator. Now, the law enforcement side of things, I feel like usually have better pistol shooters just because that's more so their bread and butter. Of course, as far as the warfighting element goes, they're gonna get outclassed by the military every day of the week. But when it comes to pistol shooting, I think on average, they're better than the military guys that on average carry handguns. Of course, they're not gonna be like better than like Delta Force guys, but that's because they're like Delta Force guys. Now, I'm getting off on a weird like wargaming nerd tangent, okay? Now, what is my relationship to Langdon Tactical? I found that my big brother Grantham has a really good trend of doing full disclosure, so I guess I'll hop on that trend. And the relationship is, I've talked to them, the owners, a few times on the phone for getting this sort of worked out for the video and whatnot. We aren't really like besties yet. I mean, maybe we will be. Maybe we'll get sushi and I'll bring Savio behind the camera and I'll pay him in sushi like I usually do.
He can't keep getting away with it!
So it's not really a very deep relationship. Essentially, a gun company reached out to me and they wanted to get the product shown off to you guys. So that's essentially the relationship in itself. So they did provide this for a quote-unquote review. However you want to consider this a review, it's up to you. I'm a dude on the internet wearing a balaclava making YouTube videos, so take everything I say and do with a grain of salt. So that's my disclaimer to you. Now, one thing I do like about the HK P30L, especially the LAS concealment holster, is how well it does conceal on the body. For a full-size handgun, I found that this really does conceal rather well for what it is, as well as it's very comfy for also having the Surefire X300 on there. So good, decent range of movement. My manhood isn't getting pinched to oblivion, so I do appreciate that factor. And it has a 17 rounds of 9mm in the gun, and if you want to carry additional mags with you, you always have that option. So another thing I really did like about it was the purchase of the handgun from the concealment. So when you go to grab it, there's a really good height of the handgun in the holster. And I found that to be a lot better. So even with my other LAS concealment holsters in the Glocks, I found that the purchase is rather low and very close to the holster. With this and the HK P30L, I feel like it rides up a lot higher and you can get up on the gun and the presentation is all very nice. So that is something I do like about it and a weird little detail for you. Now, in the game of inches, that is handgun ownership, it does matter. All right, so if we line it up furthest point back to where the back of the handguns are aligned with each other, you can see the P30L slide is longer, but the weapon light is shorter. So I think that does matter when it comes to holstering the gun, and that might be why the purchase is a little bit better and why it rides a little bit higher up in the holster. Now, I usually compare a lot of handguns to the Glock 17. I'm a simp for the Glock 17, if I'm being honest, guys. Not only am I emotionally connected to it, because a lot of time I spent on it, but I've shot this handgun by far the most. I was paid to shoot the handgun, and I qualified rather well with the handgun, I'd say. I usually, unless I was having a really off day, I usually would max out my scores at my old department for the qualification, which is a 250. I'd get a 250 out of 250, right? Good on you, buddy. And so I am attached to this gun. This is pretty much the exact same setup I ran at the PD. So anytime a new handgun comes to the arsenal, it's usually going to be compared to this. And I will definitely say that I think the HK P30L may have made me fall in love with it more than this. And that's saying a lot because I don't give a rat's ass about HK. I'm not an HK simp. If anything, I'm mad at HK usually most of the time in my existence because there's not civilian MP7s here in the States. And that may be out of their control, it may not be, but damn it, I want my own MP7. I don't care if it's semi-auto, I want it. I want it. HK, do you hear me? I want it. What are we talking about here? Sorry, what am I talking about?
I'm just hungry, dude.
You just hungry? What do you want to eat for lunch, dude? Oh, you want sushi, don't you? But anyway, so that's when it comes to the P30L. Is that essentially, it's like the Guccier version of the Glock 17. I think that's some of its downsides. The price point about it is going to be probably 2 to 3 times higher, all said and done, than a Glock 17. Because I think this base package from Langdon costs around $1,400, as opposed to a base package like just a regular Glock Gen 5, I think is going around from $500 to $600. And then you throw the weapon light, you throw the optic on, you throw the custom trigger work in there, especially with the slide work too. So a lot of that starts to add up, right? This is all said and done, so that's the 1400 compared to the Glock 17. So I think when you look at, say, a department, say a police department here looking to outfit its guys, it's of course always gonna go with Glocks for the most part, unless it chooses the Smith & Wesson MMPs like, say, Maricopa County Sheriff's Department. A really weird thing, I don't know why they like MMPs so much. So I do like this gun. I will say overall, the aesthetics of it, the look, the feel, the grip angle, the presentation of the gun, to me, these are all things I think of and that I like. Now, I'm not telling you in any way, shape, or form to go out and snag one. I'm just showing this off for the channel and the fact that it exists. I really like the fact that Langdon has done a really good job with the RDO cut optic, because before, if you wanted to do a red dot optic on an HK style gun, the people doing them would essentially mount them on top of the gun. They weren't like embedded in the slide like this, and they look like freaking tall red dots. This, to me, is much better. Langdon Tactical, they can mount an optic. My wife said she's gonna leave me if I keep doing my Trump impersonation, so I have to stop. I'm not gonna stop. Now, the final thing I'll talk about is the X factor. What is the X factor? What made the Roman legionaries so good? X factor. What made the samurai X factor? The samurai. It was their X factor. Though ancient kingdoms tried to replicate the armor, the X factor, the equipment, the tactics of the Roman legions, they didn't have that sweet, sweet X factor. They weren't Romans. And the HK has that X factor. The HK P30L. Most HK guns, I say, have that X factor. They have the it. And the it is, it makes you feel like you're the main character of your own freaking story. It makes you feel freaking cool. The gun itself makes you feel like you are a John Wick-esque assassin. Are you that cool? Absolutely not. Chances are you are not that cool. I'm not that cool. I know I'm not. But damn it, do I feel cool. I feel like I am John Wick. I need a weapon. I need guns. Lots of guns. My John Wick impersonation is not as good as my Trump impersonation. Well, was that a John Wick impersonation? I can't believe he tried to do John Wick. I'm so sorry. Unsubscribe. But it has that X factor, like I was saying. So I wasn't worried about reliability on an HK gun. Their reputation has preceded them. And of all the malfunctions I've had with this gun, it was today when I was trying to do the Sicario style shooting. And that's typically, you're never gonna do that in a self-defense situation. The brass, I think, just got stuck between that ejection port over here. That was the only malfunction I have seen with this gun, because I was doing something stupid. HK also has a feature where you have a loaded mag. You can essentially bump in the gun and it chambers the round. So I do love certain features about the HK, man. They really are cool in that aspect. Now, yet again, while I do love this slide release, it's so large, and if you have certain grips, it may be riding that slide home. That's technically nothing new. I don't know if there's any aftermarket things, kind of like a Glock would have, where they have like the higher ride slide releases on it, so you can avoid that. And gentlemen, if you enjoyed this video, like you enjoyed the HK P30L, feel free to like and subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Your comments are a sacrifice to the algorithm god, a god of which who enjoys your user engagement. If you want to support the channel in any way, shape, or form, Patreon is an excellent way to support the channel, as well as merchandise. We have some sick merchandise available. All links for everything is going to be in the description down below. As always, stay easy, stay breezy. I'll catch you on the flip. Defense shootings, of course.